we're starting off with JBAB, transgender and gender non-conforming students, which has been, we've been working on this one for about 3 months now. Dan put a lot of work into it. You've run this by John Wrigley, now our legal counsel. And what you see before us is our first try at a policy for transgender and gender non-conforming students in the schools. Dan, did you want to comment on it at all?
Yeah, I mean, we sent out comment to the principals, and we only got one minor comment around one of the red lines in there on the second page around defining gender non-conforming. Other than that, I think the school system is supportive of passing this policy.
Susan?
I just have to commend you guys. I think that that covers all the bases. It's really clear. It's I think it's a really well done policy.
We do have somewhat of an expert on the committee that was very helpful, especially with language. So.
I missed the last meeting, though.
Jim?
I can't get it to come up, so I think I've lost my internet connection. But just a general question. Oh, there it is. Do we... word's going to get out that we have this new policy. So
Which is a good thing.
I don't have a whole lot of doubt that there will be some members of the community who will be aghast that we would have a policy such as this. Are we prepared with a list of FAQs, talking points for when those, if and when those phone calls come in, as to how to respond to them? I know this, there's other places that have already gone down this road, so hopefully we would learn from them, so that once this gets enacted, and I also commend you guys for the work that you did on this, but once it gets enacted and when it hits the press and it hits people's radar, and those who are upset about it make their voices heard, that we're right there with the accurate and correct and the professional response that we'll need to have.
That's an excellent idea.
Yeah, I do too.
So one advantage we have is we did wait a little while to jump into this. We were not the first in New Hampshire. And I've spent a lot of time in the last 3 months reading the other policies in the state, reading the NHSBA proposed policy, as well as a multitude of newspaper accounts to which Jim has just been referring to. And I think that we're a little bit ahead of some of the issues that people like to bring up. We were really focused in the committee on making this not just about making the schools safer for transgender and gender nonconforming, but for all of our students. We really wanted to focus on a policy that addressed the needs of our whole student population, and I think some of the language changes that we've made, I think, work to that. At least some of the community knows that we're already doing this. I know I've been approached as I've been around Keene by people that know I'm on the board, largely by people that know that I'm on the policy committee and I've actually been working on this, but the word is out. Theoretically, this was when public would be, tonight was when public would be coming in to comment, but I think we're familiar to their mostly empty physical audience and much larger TV audience at these board meetings. Beyond that, a lot of it's up to you, Rob, because that's where the questions are going to go.
Jim?
Yeah, I just had one comment, which you probably already discussed when you went through it. I actually think that this was courageous for the board to take on and your committee to and tackle quickly, but I think it will be actually received well. That public opinion on this area is fairly liberal in this town, and rightly so. But I think on page 5, the last sentence, I just had a question, and I don't want to let it go to second reading and then ask. And you may have already vetted this with an attorney, but being in the old HR world, when I see that last sentence, which says complaints alleging discrimination or harassment based on a person's actual or perceived transgender status or gender nonconformity are to be handled in the same manner as other discrimination or harassment complaints. It seems innocuous enough, but it makes me nervous. For example, a lot of other discrimination and sexual harassment, for example, are prescribed in law protections that some harassment doesn't have, and some protected class doesn't have, and especially sexual harassment, so that if we think we're following the right procedure we would do with any harassment, I think someone can complain, well, you didn't do that because sexual harassment, you would have had to do this, this, and this prescribed by law.
Yeah.
And protected class discrimination. My only worry, and maybe you've already discussed that when you went through, is that there's a big difference between harassment and sexual harassment. There's a big difference between protected class discrimination
It's a really good point.
and general. And I don't know all the ins and outs, but I think you might, before you do division reading 2, have an attorney strengthen that up.
No, Wrigley looked at it, and I think it's there on purpose, so that if
Okay.
a kid
Well, there you
is
go.
being bullied for being transgender, bullying takes it into effect too. It's like it's giving you that leeway.
And so bullying has its own
Yep.
properties and
Yep.
protection. I just know that they're different for different things.
Yeah.
And I don't know.
I
So
mean,
if
we
you guys are good with it.
could spell it out more, but I think he was purposely trying to make sure that the ones you talk about are the umbrella at the same time. You know what I'm
Okay.
saying?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
just don't,
yeah.
it just made me nervous.
Yep.
And it sounds like you guys answered that, so sorry.
That's, do you want to check with John
Yeah.
once more, just,
Okay.
specifically as Tim has explained it, and see what he has to say? Realizing we have a short window because we're meeting because of Christmas, the policy committee will be meeting to discuss this again in 6 days.
Suddenly fast-tracked.
Yeah, well, we can do that.
Well, I was going to comment on the timeline. We will take any input we get here, as well as input that gets sent to us or relayed to the central office, to our next policy committee meeting, which is December 19th. So that we would normally be scheduled for December 26th, and thought we might have trouble getting a full meeting there. So, however, if it comes to second read, that would normally be the January full board meeting, and we're kind of busy with budget stuff, so it may not, we may not look at this at the full board again until February, so we may have a little more,
You won't.
yeah, we may have a little more time to look at this. We'll probably have 2 policy committee meetings to go over final wording. And so anyone who's watching on TV, and this is the first you've heard of this, you can feel free to, I don't know where you direct the comment to. I guess my email address is on the website. Rob and Dan's email addresses are on the website. You can feel free to send us commentary, and we'll take that into account as we look at this again in policy committee.